Welcome to the Women Empowerment Podcast. We are firm believers that we rise by lifting others. The podcast is a platform for women to share their personal stories and experiences, trials and triumphs, to have their voices heard, to promote, inspire, and motivate other women. We want to share the journey of women leaders and entrepreneurs from all industries and sectors who've made an outstanding impact in our society and empower others to do the same. And today we would like to welcome Ashley Mackenzie-Barnes, a multi-hyphenate, creative director, curator, educator, almost 20 years in design, cultural programming, teaching, visual arts, working in media, broadcasting, entertainment, publishing, corporate and nonprofit sectors. I also see Ashley as a cultural activist. She is the recipient of many awards and accolades and the winner of last year's Women Empowerment Award for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Congratulations, Ashley, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a bit about what your experience was like at the awards last year, how it was winning the award, what it meant to you, how the evening was for you?
Yeah, I think the awards was different than what I expected. And I say that in understanding that there was such a diverse group of women that were winning the awards. And when I say diverse, I don't just mean cultural diversity. I mean industries, I mean experience, I mean age, I mean platforms. And in general, just the work that is being done by the women that won the awards. It was really impressive. And I think a lot of the stories were really inspiring and really humbling too, as somebody who was one of the only creatives that were in the room in terms of the award. Even though it wasn't for creative, it was for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But being one of the only people on that recipient side that was actually a creative. So it was really interesting to see the different sectors that women are really taking the lead in that you just didn't know. And young ones at that too. There were some youth winners, just like astounding. And those stories that you were hearing were incredible. So it was really inspiring and met a lot of great people that I still keep in touch with now. And I think as it begins to continue to grow, there is a possibility to really expand it into even more sectors and with more awards and get the attention of some really powerful women in leadership roles.
And what you were awarded for, diversity, equity, and inclusion, can you talk a bit about what inspires you to work in that space and to use your talents to uplift and to be an activist, to work for social justice, those types of things?
I don't know if I can say that what's really inspired me is just, to live it, it's to breathe it, it's to be it. And I think my life has been a path where, especially working as a creative, whether it be as an independent curator or now, a boutique gallery owner, or working through the corporate creative sector when I was the only Black person in the room, let alone Black female, to this like working in publishing when again, I was kind of pushed into something like Sway magazine because it was our one Black magazine that was coming out of the city, out of Canada, really outside of Pride, which is a newsletter. So really it was Sway. And kind of getting that opportunity because someone on the outside, I remember her really well, Cheryl Phillips, she was the publisher for Toronto Star, said, why do we not have a Black staff member on an all Black publication? And just seeing that dynamic when it existed must have been maybe 13 years ago, to even still seeing that question, like that big question mark now with clients and with brands and with institutions, how many years later, I think that I've naturally become like a force and a leader in my creative fields because of that work that I do and because of my background in that work. And whether it was, in some cases, people trying to tokenize and try to bring you in to fill a quota, and then me kind of saying this project isn't being done well, so we either are going to do it well and we're going to bring in the right people to do it, or from just doing it myself. And so I think the inspiration is really just lived. It's lived inspiration, and it's me continuing to see the gaps and continuing to facilitate conversations that really talk about the inequity in some of these creative industries. And I'm even with D.PE, like the agency I have now, it's called D.PE, and it's abbreviated to D.PE, and it stands for diverse progressive experiences. And I always said the O is dropped to drop oppression. And the mandate is that we do work and understand how to bridge the gap with like the creative sectors and industries, and like bridging the gap with communities and artists. And then secondly, we care about hiring equitably.
A lot of people have a similar lived experience as you. A lot of people talk a lot of talk, but not everyone is intentional and walking their talk. And so I want to commend you for that and thank you for the intentional work that you're doing, looking out for other people to bring them up and not just for yourself. So thank you so much for that. I think our listeners would be interested to know how you even came into this journey of the creative arts. So as a child, was that something that you were skilled in and drawn to? Can you share with us a little bit about your story?
Again, a subtle forceness was there. It's a really interesting story. I was in elementary school, and my grade 4 teacher said, listen, like, she's a smart girl. She doesn't care about French. She spends very little time on other subjects, but she sits around and draws a lot. And you have an artist on your hand, whether that's something you want or not. And my mom happened to be one of those great moms that were thrilled by the idea of having an artist and not threatened by it. And at grade 4, my teacher said, and I'll never forget it. Her name was Mrs. Stillwell. She said, you really need to look at putting her into the Academy for the Arts, and it starts at grade 7. And my mom was floored and, wanted me to do the application at grade 6, and I was crying, and it was a tug of war, and I didn't want to leave my school, my childhood school, and all my friends. And so we were negotiated for grade 9. And I still didn't want to leave. I wanted to go with my friends to the cool Scarborough school. And, young people don't have awful decision-making skills. So thank God for
their brains haven't fully developed.
They care about the wrong things. And so thank God I had a mom who was dedicated and really believed in listening to people in the school system who, recognized talent. And then had me apply for Cardinal Carter Academy for the Arts. That's a school in North York. And that was kind of my first time, taking my level, my skill set and my talent into the educational system. And from there, I developed my design and my my creative exploration and understanding, visual arts, history and techniques. And I loved it. And, I did my first solo show, I think, when I just graduated school. I curated it myself, but I quickly found that I was not drawn to being a struggling artist. And as I'm a big person for wanting to be able to pay my way through life, and I wanted to eat. And that's not a typical thought process for a lot of artists that are, about to graduate school. They want to stay in arts. And that's what led me to go into design, advertising and graphic design. And I took that course feeling like, I had a strong desire for editorial. And that was the other thing. I loved editorial. My mom used to say that I was young and I wanted every magazine that had like a person of color on, like Black people, every Word Up magazine, every magazine. I had to get it, had to buy it. We went to a theater show. She had to get me, the booklet at the end. I was just obsessed with magazines. And I thought, well, I would really love to work as like an art director one day. And so I went into advertising and graphic design. If like fate would have it, I ended up working in Toronto Star for like close to 7 years, working on Sway magazine, Sue Hogg, Canadian Immigrant, I Weekly at the time, which then went on to be The Grid. And I also started to become bored of 2D. So creative ADHD. So I went back to school to Ryerson, and I said, well, wouldn't it be great to design for stages and sets? And I want to be a designer for productions. And I went back to school for art direction for film and special events, which did not work out that way, but did get me into kind of like a way of understanding curatorial studies, studying history of scenography, event planning, layouts, things like that. And I kind of took my love for art and my love for design, but also my love for like art galleries and shows, and wanted to produce my own shows, my own art, and got into curating. And I think I lived the two worlds at the same time, design and art, and I always have, and that's why you kind of see the inception of both under the DOPE umbrella, which is my agency. But I kept going through, whether it was like the creative corporate world while being an independent curator. I kept both worlds going, and that's what's kind of led me to this point and now having this agency.
I love the way that you light up when you talk about your journey and the different things that you've done. And I wanted to know, what is your favorite part of what you do?
Oh man, there's so many parts, but I think telling, reaching masses with uh, impactful storytelling. And I think art changes the world. And when we look at a time like, dare I say it, COVID, that there wasn't much to do left but engage in art, whether through digital mediums or in at home or on the television or online. It's, you know, art champions a lot of social justice movements. Art is such a necessary piece of society, and artists are such vocal voices and expressive voices in ways that really matter. And I think, when I look at something like the Nina Chanel Avenue project that we did in Yorkville 2 summers ago, and the impact that it had, but people didn't realize like it was intentionally placed in Yorkville because of its socioeconomic status, and it's looked at to have classism and et cetera. And, I think even at the time during COVID, there had been called out, for certain businesses or industries that were considered racist, and some of them existed in Yorkville. So for me to bring in a queer Black female political artist from the US to do a large scale 120-foot mural, who at the time had just, sold on the auction house for $1 million, had just did the cover of the New Yorker, had just did Kamala Harris's campaign shoes, and be able to bring an opportunity like that to Toronto and tell such a big impactful story. And if you probably remember, it said, "Stop, don't kill." It was like not subtly, but it was a very straightforward message.
Not subtle at all.
Not subtle, but the mural was huge, but the message kind of the message kind of rang in the statement. And I think it's really great to be able to produce, whether it should be through video campaign or content creation or installations or XM projects or a traveling show or a really great curated show or something like that, like a massive public art project, to be able to bring it to the masses, like large amounts of people, and utilize that space to tell a message that really matters for where we are right now.
Because this is a woman focused awards and podcast, I have to mention that you were the designer and art director for Honey Jams, all-female nonprofit, for over 10 years.
Yeah, a long time.
And there was also the huge project that you did for Universal, the Black Woman Project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's actually one of my other favorite projects. And that was a really interesting one because it came at a time when, our story here with Regis, but also Breonna Taylor in the States, the violence that was happening against Black women. And, it was a continuation of Black Lives Matters, of course. But Emmanuel, who was a really talented artist that had just one of the newest artists under the Universal Music Canada umbrella, had released a song called Black Women, a timely, released at that time for a reason. Amazing song. It was actually just this very beautiful song. And Cardinal, who's the A&R at Universal Music, but we also know him as a big celebrity face, approached me to be in that campaign at the time. And he said, we have an idea that we want to somehow do a photo shoot or profile, or we don't know, but we know we want to do something with Black women that we choose from the community. Will you be in it? I said, sure. Who's going to do it? And they said, we don't know. Well, do you think that you could also do it? And I said, well, I don't think I want to be in it and do it, but I definitely would love to do it. Can you send me the list of the women that you were showing? And this is a really big part of the story because it does continue to advocate for the lens that I see through when doing this type of work. And I remember seeing the list and it was great. And every woman on there was amazing, but it was a lot of lighter skinned women and a lot of women that have higher social engagement or were in the media, and it was kind of same. And I said, I can't possibly put together this campaign with this. And I said, this is not a reflection of Black women, and they are strong Black women and they are Black women, but this is very it's very monotone. It's a little tone deaf, and it's, you know, it's not a reflection of what I think is shows the strength of Black women. And so I was ready to walk away from the project, and then Cardi's like, absolutely not. Like, you're like, bring your list. And, you know, I remember I brought, like, you know, Naki to the table, and
Yes.
we had said Tanisha Scott's in town. I was like, absolutely. And you know, we kind of worked through this list, and one of the people I wanted, we couldn't get, actually, a really great artist who's doing really well right now. Artists tend to be camera shy, and it's just like it's pulling teeth trying to get them to be in campaigns.
Right.
And that's when Cardi said, we really would like to have you back in it. So that's how I ended up being the fifth person. And it I think that was so well received, because it was one of the other projects that I've in a sense curated, that was so well received, and we hired Black male photographers. So having the POV of Black men lifting up Black women through photography, it didn't need to be what it was. They were like, we're just going to put some photos up. We just, you know, we might put the Spotify logo on. And I said, absolutely not. Like, let's make this a campaign. I want to get quotes from the women. Like, I want this to be related to how they feel about the song. And let's dig deeper here. And that's kind of how the full campaign came around, where we captured the photos, but we also did interviews with the women, but we also created like short content creation, like short reels from it that we put on social.
Right.
And then we also like created like very short clips that were in the out of home, which essentially was all that it was supposed to be, the out of home piece. And it was just going to be photography. And I said, no, this is going to be the campaign. And so I created the campaign.
It was an amazing, all-encompassing multimedia campaign. And I love hearing the backstory and hearing how you almost walked away and how you inserted yourself. And it wasn't just like, take the check, do what I say, but especially being a Black woman yourself, that you had a vested interest in seeing the outcome, you know, and also being in a position of respect in the community, that your voice was going to be heard, and being in a place in your life that you didn't have to be worried about turning down the check and having to, you know, have anything suffer in terms of integrity, honor, purpose, and what you wanted to see come out of that. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
I'd like to switch to some things that can be instructional, motivational, aspirational, inspirational to some of our listeners, in terms of anything that you want to share about your journey, any obstacles that you had and overcame, how you define success, any mantras that you live by, how you balance your life, advice. You can pick any or all of those until our time runs out.
Well, some of my biggest inspiration in terms of my own work is, I don't want to do anything that I wouldn't want to partake in or see. And I'm probably one of my hardest critics. So, you know, it becomes a challenge. You do at some point become exhausted of trying to find the next really big thing that you would want to be engaged with. And then of course,
topping yourself
is impossible. And you know, some years I haven't topped myself. And I've, you know, done projects that might not have had the same significance or impact as Universal Music. But I think for me, it's also, if I'm not topping myself, I'm keeping the same integral approach into my projects. And it still has to have that underlying theme of, would I want to go see this? Would I want to engage with this? And I think especially with festivals, Nuit Blanche and KUUMBA, and KUUMBA to me is one of my proudest moments still too, when we did 2020 KUUMBA at Harbourfront. And the whole thing was just curated based on, what would I want to walk in and see? And it got such good reviews because I put all of my heart in it. It wasn't just like, let's find the next fad, or let's find the next big name, or like, let's see who are the top of their game right now, who can really work together in a contemporary space, but also celebrating Black History Month, but also be relevant to different crowds. And I think that's another thing for me as a Black woman, is that I'm not here just to service the Black community. I want to build in the Black community, and I want to give the Black community something that they're going to love, but I'm here to service people who are interested in learning. And that comes from outside of the Black community too. And the way that we design and program needs to feel inclusive. And I'm saying it's like
Mm-hmm.
everyone we're using is inclusive. I'm just saying it needs to feel that all are welcome to hear this story and to
Yes.
enjoy this work. And that's a very big mandate for me in my work as well, to not
Mm-hmm.
make people feel like they're unwelcomed. Um,
Any struggles you went through, and then how did you overcome them? Anything that drives you, that helps you over those hump days?
Yeah, I mean, I have struggles all the time. There's struggles with clients that you might not see the vision the same way you do. And I like to have a lot of creative autonomy in my work. I like to be trusted. And I think at this level of my career, and like you said, with the accolades and the proof of projects, I rarely run into people who don't trust the work, but it's that they trust it and you've heard great things or you want to work with me, but then you don't understand the mandate can't be dropped. The hiring
Right.
equitably will not be dropped. The delivering like paying fair wages, fair fees to artists will not be dropped. Not like engaging people for free work. I do not do that. It will not happen. It's not an equitable practice. And you know, these things that are based on exposure, and that tale is long done. You know,
Right.
we pay people for their time, and I think again, similar to any project, if I have to walk away because it's not the right fit or because they don't believe in the equitable side of it, or they aren't, you know, they want to hire me but they don't understand why it's important for the rest of the storytelling to be with a team that is actually storytelling from the POV of the culture or the race or the gender or the sexuality of those who are should be hired for this story, then it can't be done. And so I live very true to my mandate because it's something I would want for somebody to advocate for me. And they did advocate for me when I was a younger creator.
Right.
And I think it's important to still have people advocating, especially in the commercial spaces and the corporate creative spaces and industries, to continue to have those type of discussions.
And what does women empowerment mean to you? And has there been a woman in your life who exemplifies that for you, who maybe has been a mentor for you?
So I think woman empowerment is such a range. I think woman empowerment also lies very much so with the women themselves. So we
Mhm.
obviously we can give out awards and that are titled women empowerment. We can uplift other women, but empowerment also is a very personal and individualistic thing. And being able to step into your power as a woman comes with getting through that journey, and sometimes it comes with healing. Sometimes it comes overcoming past trauma. Sometimes it comes overcomes insecurities, different psychological humps. And I think it starts individual. I think it starts within first. And
Right.
you know, as a woman who's gone through male dominated fields, there was no man who was or another woman who was necessarily going to teach me that. I had to learn that myself, that self-worth, that self-value. And then I think in terms of women who have been mentors, I think I've met many mentors over the years. Like the first time I was in a group show with my art was during Caravana, and oh no, I always bring up her name, but now I can't remember. I think she ran Colorblind. Joan Butterfield. This would have been around the time that Honey Jam might have even been in its inception, but no one
Okay.
recognizes this name. And like, I will give so much credit to this woman because I remember just thinking she was a partner with Caravana and she did a massive show at the ROM. And I remember just saying, how is a Black woman doing this? I've never seen a Black curator. She was so fabulous in her hats and how she dressed. And I said, I want to be that when I grow up. And that was kind of where I saw myself, like as a curator, like I want to be as fabulous as this woman. And shortly after that, I don't know how much work she did, but she was long before some of our institutional are the women that are leading the charge in our institutions that are women of color, and
Hmm.
readers that are coming up years before me was this woman. And I don't ever hear her name brought up, but I remember just thinking like, and I asked her to mentor me. I was like, I want to be a curator. And I was so young. And, she brought me to her studio and told me about art wrapping and, did the whole thing. And I checked in with her for a while, for a couple of years, until I think I eventually like got very close to working with Manifesto. But I give so much credit to that woman, and I don't know where she is now, but she literally changed my vision of where I saw Black women placed in the arts.
Awesome. We are running out of time.
Mhm.
So I'd like to, first of all, this was amazing. I could speak to you for 5 more hours. There's so much that we haven't even touched the
Yeah.
fact that you work with Lauryn Hill and so many other amazing things that you've done.
Yeah.
But I'd like to end with any advice, any mantras, any quotes, affirmations that are a part of your life.
Yeah, I think don't be afraid of the opportunity. Just try to individualize it. So when I say that some people, like, some people might say, oh, you work with alcohol brands. Like, do you feel like that's selling out in arts? And I'm, no, I don't actually, because a lot of brands actually champion a lot of arts and they actually put a lot of money behind artists. And some of them have paid some of the fairest wages for my artists. And so I think for me, I'm not afraid of taking on different opportunities and opportunities that look very different from the ones that I've done before. And I think it helps diversify my agency, diversify my portfolio, and I diversify my skill set. As I wasn't afraid to work in corporate, but I've always stuck very true to my individualistic approach to it. And I think that as a creator, and I'm talking to creatives right now and creators, you have to understand that you may be asked to do things that you didn't necessarily see yourself doing before. So long as it's not, threatening your moral compass, you have to figure out how to switch that opportunity into something that is of value for you, that you can maybe even create bigger impacts and change with. And that's how we teach too. That's how we educate others. So don't be afraid to try new things and to take on different types of opportunity that you might not have thought would be for you, if it's not going to hinder you.
One more thing, I know how insanely busy your schedule is and how many things you have on your plate. What is your happy place? What is your self-care? What do you do to get a break for yourself?
Like, I love to ride my bike. I go to other ship with my friends. I go to the spa. I obviously travel. For anyone who's on my Instagram, I find a lot of joy in seeing other cultures, seeing public art and doing the whole cultural experience in other places and getting inspiration for what I can do here. But, quiet moments. I think quiet moments are really great, and that it could be just a walk, it could be just spending time with a friend, it could be going out for dinner, it could be just hopping in my bike or riding in my car with the top down, something that's going to kind of like refresh me. And I do have I think a great, since we're talking about Women Empowerment Awards, I think I have a great circle of women that are around me that I really appreciate, and we uplift each other and we support each other as well. A lot of women that are in business and business owners and entrepreneurs or artists. And I think we've been a really great support system to each other. And sometimes when you think, you might be losing it, or you just can't do it anymore, or you're getting too tired, or the hustle is getting too crazy, I think that those other women really remind you of the value and remind you of where you're coming from and what you've done, but also the potential of where you're going. And they help kind of show you like there's so much more to be done, but in the best way possible.
That's a fantastic note to end on. Women supporting other women. Thank you again so much, Ashley. I look forward to seeing all the amazing things that you're going to do. And you can put me in your suitcase for one of your amazing travels and tours around the world. Thanks so much, and all the best to you.
You too. Thanks, Ebony.
The Women Empowerment Awards are coming up on September 22nd. Please go to the website and find out how to get your tickets and how you can support the event. And we'll see you next time.